to start with a little bit of kirtan. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe.
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe.
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe.
Kunj Bihari Radhe.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Balagopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Jai Harinama Sankirtana ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai,
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananga Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Rindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Mevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to this modified format of our Sunday Bhakti Viksha gathering. We are certainly in very interesting times. I think times that we will look back upon and say this was a historic event. Unfortunately, historic events are not always glorious, and we are certainly, working through, quite a humanitarian challenge. And in these times, sometimes we are searching for answers and searching for opportunities, and the our history, our Vedic history teaches us one very powerful lesson throughout the history of time, that in the midst of all crises, um, one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has found clarity, peace, and perseverance, and ultimately success through those challenges. And it's just not once or twice or thrice, but we see it repeatedly over and over and over again. And today, in the midst of this COVID-19 virus that we are all fighting, this is certainly the ultimate path to success. And certainly, we must be very conscious and mindful of some of the precautions that we must take to protect the body. The body is a very important vehicle in the process of rendering service to the Supreme Lord, and so we certainly, should really abide by and follow, the guidelines that are being, shown to us by the CDC and the WHO and other authorities. Just as, we take information from authorities who have our interest at heart, certainly the guidelines that we're getting here are important to follow, and I don't want to in any way minimize those in any way, but certainly want to speak of them in the context of the greater opportunity. And so, we've certainly, looked to, again, modify even this program to allow for us to gather here, but also, pay attention to the needs on the bodily platform and protecting ourselves from the exposure to this virus. So, but these crises that face us, that we know from our very basic philosophy that this is the nature of the material world. In the material world, there are 4 difficulties, and they are problems because they apply to all. And those are birth, death, old age, and disease. And certainly we are in the midst of, a new disease. But unfortunately, even with conquering this coronavirus, which it will, in time this will pass, and in time with good precautions and good adherence to, the recommendations, we will hopefully very quickly, overcome this challenge. But unfortunately, will this solve disease? Can we have faith that there will not be another such, disease to come forward? Well, we know by fact that it will indeed happen. And so what is the solution that we can make to become free from these, difficulties? And that brings us to this, to the process of Krishna consciousness, whereby which one who follows the instructions of the Supreme Lord has the opportunity to become eternally free, not just temporarily, from these different difficulties. And that has a long-term solution, right? Okay, I can practice spiritual life and ultimately become free from the difficulties. But in the midst of crisis, we see great devotees, our Mahajans. They follow a certain process to also become fearless. And, we may be, encountering an aspect of fear but actually by the practice of Krishna consciousness, we can approach this situation with great care and precaution, but also with great confidence and fearlessness. So we want to do both. Approach the situation with certainly care and precaution, but also approach it with confidence and fearlessness. Don't mistake fearlessness and confidence with, minimizing the importance of these precautions. So we want to carry both of them. But let us not carry these precautions and these things full of fear. Instead, we can become fearless. And who can we look to for such, guidance and such examples? And our very dear Prahlad Maharaj is such a wonderful example. A 5-year-old boy, normally 5-year-old boys are full of joy and also easily put into fear, right? It doesn't take much. Just say boo, and a 5-year-old boy will cry or run. It doesn't take much. Right? That is the cute and innocent nature of 5-year-old boys. Well, Prahlad Maharaj was no ordinary 5-year-old boy. He, having heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam and been instructed while he was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu, by the great sage Narada Muni, appeared in this world as a pure devotee, a full self-realized soul. And from his very early age, he understood how to experience real happiness, and that was in Krishna consciousness. So when his father, Hiranyakashipu, who was an extraordinary demon, how extraordinary he was? He had rule of the entire universe. All the planetary systems were under his control. And everybody was serving him, not out of love, but out of fear. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we see his reign of terror was so fearsome that even the fields, Mother Earth, was providing crop without even being cultivated because she was fearful of the retribution of Hiranyakashipu. The rivers were flowing jewels out of fear of retribution from Hiranyakashipu. If he just raised his eyebrow, people would scatter in fear. This was the reign of terror. But with his own son, Prahlad Maharaj, when Prahlad Maharaj was not abiding by his desire to train him in his own gruesome ways, and Prahlad Maharaj remained fixed in his Krishna consciousness, Prahlad Maharaj became unmoved and undaunting and undeterred in his process. And Hiranyakashipu became very mad. He had everybody under his control, but his 5-year-old son. And so he enacted a reign of terror that in today's terms we would consider the most horrific of terrorist activities. He threw his son from a cliff. He put him in the midst of mad elephants trying to trample him. He threw him into a pit of venomous snakes. He put him into the middle of a ferocious fire. All these very extreme measures. Yet, what was the mood and condition of Prahlad Maharaj? Full of bliss and peace. He had no fear. And what was the source of his fearlessness? Was it his own prowess, his own ability to fight those snakes or to, withstand the heat? No. It was his meditation and chanting of the holy names. He remained fixed in this process of devotional service. And by that, he obtained a great power and potency to be fearless in the midst of extraordinary calamities. So, from this example, which is given in the 7th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, it is one of the most extensive pastimes presented in Srimad Bhagavatam to give us some indication of its importance. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he would read Srimad Bhagavatam, he would read this pastime repeatedly over and over and over again with his great associate Gadadhar Pandit. They would recite this seventh canto, the first part of seventh canto, over and over and over again. So we see it is very instructive for us. And so by following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, we can see that yes, in the midst of some calamities, some difficulties, it is the process of devotional service that will give us confidence, strength, fearlessness to persevere and to overcome. Again, we still must pay attention to some of the precautions and things that we must do, but at the end of the day, we can take great comfort and shelter in Krishna telling us, Ma suchaha, do not fear. He says this in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshayish mama suchaha. He says that you just surrender unto me. Abandon everything else. I will deliver you from all your reactions, all sinful reactions. And then he gives the assurance, because we may have some doubt. And what does he say? Ma suchaha. Do not fear. So this process is very powerful. And we see in even recent times, when there were various difficulties in the times of Srila Prabhupada, even when there were attacks, what did the devotees do? They took to the shelter of the holy names, took to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and he provided great protection. Why Srila Prabhupada enacted the very important, process of chanting the Nrsimhadev prayers in the temple as a means to seek shelter. But protection for what? Not just our body, but our bhakti, our spiritual progress. Because that is our real asset, our eternal asset. As we've been studying in this chapter 2, we have said over and over again, we are not this body, we are spirit soul. And actually, this difficulty is a great opportunity for us. In any difficulty, a strong and capable person thinks, okay, what can I get out of this? Of course, I'm going to address the issue at hand, but also, what can I get out of it? How can I better myself through this difficulty? Well, this is a great opportunity for us to remember, I'm not this body. Yes, all of this emotion and consciousness that we have absorbed in this current situation, let us remember, it is on the bodily platform. And that is not me. If my car was so sick, would I have the same type of emotion? Probably not. So we can use this as an opportunity to say, okay, yes, I'm going to take care of the bodily precautions. They are important. But I'm not going to allow my consciousness to come down to this platform and become upended. Instead, I can remain very peaceful and happy in the midst of my relationship with the Supreme Lord, because I am spirit soul. And this is a great opportunity for us to double down on our opportunity to remember, I am spirit soul, I am not this body. Of course, we know easier said than done, but this is a great chance for us. And let us, take to the shelter of the holy names. It is our ultimate Savior. And have faith that Krishna repeatedly says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am your protector. Right? He gives this peace formula at the end of the 5th chapter. He says, Bhoktarab yagnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram surdam sarva bhutanam. This is one of the sweetest lines in the entire Bhagavad Gita. Surdam sarva bhutanam. Which means, Krishna says, I am your ever well-wisher. Krishna is always our well-wisher. And he says, Yakva mam shantim richiti. One who knows this attains peace. This is the 29th verse of the 5th chapter, if anyone would like to read that at a later time. But understand, Krishna is our ever well-wisher. So yes, this difficulty is there. It is due to the actions, it is due to the laws of karma. Based on the activities, there will be reactions. There is no avoiding that. But we can protect ourselves not only through good, precautions, but ultimately through the shelter of the Supreme Lord. Okay? So this is an opportunity for us. And as we increase our chanting and our reading and the spiritual energy around us, it has the proven ability to conquer this. And in time, this will also pass. So let us have confidence and become fearless while also paying appropriate attention to the precautions that are being, guided to us. And in this way, we will be able to continue very nicely and develop, following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada and the great devotees, and of course, Arjuna, as we've been discussing, was in this mood of distress, fearful, not sure what to do. And what did he do to cure his situation? He turned to his dear friend, Krishna. So if we do the same, we will certainly achieve great benefit. Right? So we're going to move forward now in our discussion about in chapter 2. And this is the 38th verse of chapter 2 that we're going to discuss now. So this verse reads, "Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by doing so, you shall never incur sin." Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna's transcendental consciousness. So, there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all their duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 5th chapter, verse 41. This is the indirect hint by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. So here we see that Krishna is now instructing Arjuna, to do his duty, do the fight for the sake of fighting, but do not consider happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. Right? And by doing that, you will be free from all sin. So we have discussed this topic of how to act. So the first thing Krishna is telling Arjuna here is that one should be active, because action is the nature of the soul. Activity is intrinsic to what we do. How many of us are enjoying having limited activity in today's situation? Nobody. Nobody likes restrictions on these activities. We want to be free and be active and do things. How many of us would prefer to be, together today, enjoying this and enjoying prasadam together? Of course. But we have restrictions. So this activity is the nature of the soul. So the question is how to do action without reaction. We know that the laws of karma says if you do an activity, there is a reaction. Right? So this is the law of Newton that we've talked about certainly for months now. But there is a reaction. What we are seeing around us is but a reaction to prior actions. That is how the law works. It is a perfect system. Right? So, as Prabhupada is saying here, that how to get where there is no reaction. Well, we know that if I do bad activities, I'll get bad reactions. Certainly, this situation is simply that, a bad reaction to some prior bad activities. And if I do good karma, what does that lead to? Well, it leads to good reactions. But are those good reactions actually good for us? Unfortunately, those who have done good in the world, are they being impacted by this? Of course. No one is free. Okay? So these reactions, either good or bad, they ultimately lead to another birth. And associated with that will come old age, will come disease, and with birth, we know death is guaranteed. Right? So either good actions or bad actions, they both lead to bondage. Krishna will be speaking about this topic of bondage. So he's telling Arjuna that if you do your action in a certain way, then there is no reaction. But wait a minute. We said every action has a reaction. So there must be some other thing. Because our only other option would be then to be inactive, to do nothing. But as we've said, anybody enjoys being inactive? No. So what to do? So Krishna is telling Arjuna that if you detach from the fruits, then you have no reaction. You'll incur no sin. Right? So Prabhupada says, there is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So when we detach from the fruits, we gain a great benefit and the opportunity to become free from all of the reactions. So this detachment from fruits is not such an easy thing. Just as it is not so easy to see I am spirit soul, I am not this body, this next topic now that we're going to be entering into the Bhagavad Gita, which is how to work detached from the fruits, is very difficult for us to do. Right? And why is it so difficult? Because of our false ego. We think I am the creator. Right? So this topic of detachment or fruits, Krishna is going to speak extensively in the 3rd chapter and also in the 5th chapter and in the coming verses as well to help reinforce this importance of detachment. So we can detach from the fruits if we have knowledge. Right? I'm not going to give something up unless I know why and what's in it for me. Ultimately, we have this self-serving nature. So what's in it for me for detaching, and why should I do it? So the why is real simple. Whatever we create in this world, who is the real proprietor? We thought we created, this society in a way to function, and now everything is being upended. Right? Who is the real proprietor? Who is the real controller? Us? If we were the controller, we would not be canceling vacations and canceling different trips and doing different activities and even school. If we were the controller, would that happen? No. So there must be some higher controller. And we know that supreme controller to be Krishna. So if he is the controller, then he is also the proprietor. When we think whatever we create in this world, do we manufacture any of the resources to create? I may create a wonderful TV screen. But where am I getting the raw materials to create? Coming from Mother Earth. Did I bring those with me when I exited the womb of my mother? Here's my package of raw materials that I'm going to use during my time on this earth? No. We entered this world with nothing, and we're going to leave this world with nothing. In between, we're simply going to be utilizing Krishna's resources. So just as if I come into your house and I start cooking in your kitchen, and I start making a wonderful dish using your rice and dal and sabjis and spices and chapati flour, even though I can't really make chapatis, but let's pretend. If I do that, and then I sit down to eat, and you say, wait a minute, what are you doing? I said, well, I made the food. You would say, yeah, but you used all my bhoga. It's my house, my kitchen. Right? We wouldn't consider that very nice. So similarly, we are in Krishna's world making all these things, yet we want to use them for ourselves. So when we do that, there's a reaction. Just like the householder may have a reaction to, me cooking in their home and eating by myself. And the reaction may be, right? So just like that in the material world, if we use all these things for ourselves, then there's a reaction. We have the free will to choose, but there's a reaction. But if we acknowledge who is the real creator, then we know that it is the Supreme Lord, and then we detach. We detach from the fruits. Now immediately, when we think about surrendering the fruits of our work, our immediate reaction is what? I lose, and the recipient of those fruits gains. Right? Because that is the nature of the material world. If I, surrender my income to somebody else, well, I lose and they win. It's a simple formula. It's a fixed pie, a zero-sum game, we call it. But in spiritual math, it is completely the opposite. When we detach from the fruits, we actually win. What does Krishna really need from our fruits? He has everything. So when he is telling Arjuna, you do this fighting without consideration, he is thinking what is best for Arjuna, not what is best for himself. Sometimes we think, oh, that's mighty nice of Krishna to think, you do all the work and give me the fruits. But remember, Krishna is out of love instructing Arjuna. What is best for him? So in this detachment, we are the actual beneficiaries. We win, right? So let's look at this action. When we do activity, we have two options. We can either attach to the fruits or we can detach. Of course, we can do different types of activities, but let's put it in a realm of good activities. So we can attach or detach. Well, how to choose which one I'm going to do is going to be based on what is the outcome of each. So if I attach to the fruits, what happens? I get good and bad karma. I get reactions. Well, if I have reactions, I have to come and take those. So at the end of this life, if there are any reactions in my account, either good or either bad, I have to take another birth and receive those. But while receiving those reactions in that next birth, what do? More actions. And thus I'm creating more reactions. And by the end of that life, if I have any in my balance, what do I have to do? Come back and take those. And what is this called? The perpetual cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And how does it end? When does it end? It only ends when we learn to detach from the fruits. Because as soon as I detach, now there is no reactions. I stop filling my account. I stop filling my good and bad account. So in detachment, what happens? We have no reactions. But there is a far, far superior result than even that. Which is when one detaches from the fruits, one actually then finds perfect peace and happiness. When one learns to work for the sake of Krishna, as Prabhupada says, that is transcendental consciousness. That is the ultimate goal. That when one works for Krishna, then nothing else needs to be done, as this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam in the purport indicates. That as one who is completely surrendered to Krishna, there is no debtor. He has no other debtor. He is not obliged to anybody. It means this is the all-in-one. By serving Krishna, we satisfy all of our debts. And finally, one becomes equipoised. Krishna is going to explain this in the coming verses. In just about 10 or 12 verses, he's going to say that when you detach from the fruits, you'll become equipoised. That means you'll become peaceful. How many of us would like to be equipoised right now? steady in our consciousness? Of course, all of us. So this happens by this process of detached action. So this detached action is the second core theme that Krishna is instructing in this Bhagavad Gita. First, I am not this body, I'm spirit soul. And now, how to act in this world? If we act in a detached manner, we will then find no reactions, and we will attain ultimately the spiritual world, because we'll have nothing left in our account at the end of this life, no more business to do, and we can return to Vaikunta, where there is no disease, there is no old age, there is no death, and there's certainly no rebirth. It is a place of eternal peace and happiness. Right? So this is Krishna bringing us slowly to the platform of bhakti, of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada in these purports is speaking directly about devotional service, which is what we will be doing. So this is the path that is recommended. Of course, the choice is ours. We get to choose, and we should choose with knowledge, knowing what are the consequences of each, and with good knowledge, we can then make the right and best decision for us for long-term eternal success. Right? So this is the discussion that we'll have today on the 38th verse, and next week we'll continue with verse 40. And just in conclusion, again, encourage everyone to take shelter of the holy names. You will find great reciprocation from the Supreme Lord in chanting of the holy names, and have faith that Krishna is there protecting all of us. We know we are not this body. We certainly need to pay attention to the aspects of the body that are confronting us today. But let our consciousness be peaceful, confident, and fearless as we transcend to a higher platform, understanding I am spirit soul, and engage in the eternal activity of the spirit soul. The spirit soul only has one eternal activity, one sanatana dharma, and that is to engage in loving service of the Lord. Okay? So we'll conclude here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Any questions or comments we have?
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dharma, I had a question.
Yes, Mataji.
Seeing the current situation, I'm just contemplating a question that one might feel guilty with the situation happening, that there may be one may need to do some services at the temple but not able to go, but some may be still going. So how do we kind of understand that? Then that might make us one be guilty, one is not able to go. So is that one being too extra cautious about it, or is just that happening out of fear and lack of faith?
Yeah, it's a good practical question. So I guess I can speak at least from my own perspective, and my own perspective built on getting advice from senior devotees, that there is no better shelter than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shri Shri Radha Kunj Bihari is an ocean of unlimited mercy, and entering his home is no small feat. And by entering his home, overcoming some obstacles is of great pleasing to the Supreme Lord. So one is encouraged to continue to take shelter, to attend. Of course, we still want to be cautious and practice social distancing while in the temple. There will be some changes to the program to ensure the safety, the physical safety of everybody, in terms of serving prasadam and other things. But while we protect our physical safety, we have to keep foremost our spiritual safety. So going to the temple and rendering service continues to be the greatest thing we can do. Sure, we may modify the approach a little bit, to take into account the current situation and the current dynamic. But it is a great opportunity and continues to be a great opportunity. So, devotees are encouraged to go and chant in front of the Lord, to render some service. We have modified the schedule to allow for a staggering of visits, right? So there's no set schedule, which means people will come at periodic times of the day that will limit the mass aggregation of the congregation and will allow for everyone to come, at a time that is convenient for them, but still take part in the greatest gift we have, which is the mercy of Shri Shri Radhakunj Vihari that is flowing for all of us. So, we should proceed again with caution, but with great confidence. Um, by some very basic precautions. Again, if we get technical with this virus is is not so dangerous, but the danger is of the unknown at this point, right? Because it is a virus that can be handled. So with good precautions, good hygiene, that we have actually little risk. But again, we should follow the guidelines that are being told. There is not a quarantine. We are self-quarantining. But that is not being recommended by the CDC or the WHO or the state of Michigan, right? So, we want to reference those, but you have to read those guidelines. I am, actively managing this in our own, from a professional standpoint, our own dental practices. So we're very actively putting through precautions and still, there's going on. So, one is encouraged to continue, but one should also, do what they are comfortable with. So, I will continue my own services. I will be attending, one of the artis tomorrow to see the Lord being worshipped, and will render some service to the best of my limited ability. And others are encouraged to do so again according to their comfort, with knowledge. But rest assured, going to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and taking shelter of the holy names is always, in all circumstances, the most beneficial activity we can do.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That really helps a lot. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your question. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, then we'll adjourn here again. So thank you very much for your participation. And if there's anything I can do, you're welcome to call me or email me or meet with me. I have no concerns. So anything I can do in your process immediately or in the future, I'm always available. And I wish everybody a wonderful Krishna conscious Saturday and weekend and the weeks to come in the midst of this. Remember again, take precaution, but be confident and be fearless. The Supreme Lord has our back, arm on our shoulder, walking us step by step through this material world, as long as we accept his arm on our shoulder. Hare Krishna, everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.